8:18 at O'Hare. Next news coming up at 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Secure Retirement Radio with host Raj Shah. Sunday mornings at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
33 Turkish soldiers wounding more than 30 were the action of the Russians, and then they issued a correction saying, we don't know if they were the actions of the Russians. So wonderful New York Times, the paper of record, the Gray Lady. Let's see if Jed Babbin can clear this up for us, and then we'll get into a little bit of talk about COVID-19.
And we've tweeted out a new
well.
picture of the show.
Yeah.
I think the show should be called Calm and Crazy. You're the calm.
Right.
I'm the crazy.
I'm in street clothes, and you're dressed up like you're walking into the Chernobyl reactor.
Exactly. You have to see it. It's on Twitter. We'll tweet it out again for you.
Jed Babbin is the former U.S. Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. And, Jed, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here, guys.
So the attack on Turkish forces in Syria, how should we understand it?
Well, we should understand it that, A, it may be exaggerated as to its effect. B, it's highly unlikely that anybody other than the Russians would have done it, except for the Syrians and the other people who are there, like the Kurds. Who knows who did it? At this point, we really need to understand it as really nothing much more than another propaganda exercise by Turkey.
Does this at all, should this at all prompt calls of, all for one and one for all, the NATO mantra, Turkey attacked?
Hardly. Number one, we really haven't had an ally in Turkey for more than a decade at this point. So it's questionable to me whether they have, they have the right to invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which you're referring to, the Common Defense Article. But I don't think that much, if any, of the NATO nations would respond if they even did that. I think they know that, but it's quite possible that Turkey, or Erdogan rather, will try to invoke that article and bring us into a bigger war. I don't think even he wants to start that big a war on his home turf, which I think is a pretty powerful disincentive for him doing that.
All right, one more topic before we get to COVID-19, and that is this piece that you wrote. I believe it was American Spectator, if I'm recalling correctly, that the next coup against Trump is afoot. A lot of people joking about one more stab at impeachment before November, and maybe not so funny. You suggest that that report that was leaked out and then partially recanted or certainly recast by those outlets that reported the leak, like CNN, about Russia already trying to meddle in 2020 to the benefit of Trump, that could be the Dems' next path to an impeachment gambit before November?
Well, it's no joke. I think that the Democrats have little or nothing else to try to battle Trump with. So they are going to try another big investigation. They may actually try another impeachment against him before November, and this is certainly the beginnings of it. We see a briefing by the now former acting Director of National Intelligence, Admiral Joe McGuire, and one of his deputies, to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, the Adam Schiff Committee. If there's one place you want to leak something so that you can make absolutely sure that it's, to send something, to brief them, to make sure it absolutely gets leaked to the New York Times and the Washington Post, the HPSC is the place to go. And that's where they went. They didn't brief the president. They didn't brief the National Security Advisor. They went to the HPSC. They went to Adam Schiff, knowing damn well it was going to get leaked. And it was. And, it's just another fantasy, as far as we can tell, that the Democrats and the people in the so-called deep state are putting up to try to damage Trump.
Now, let's move over to my favorite subject, because I'm obsessed with the coronavirus, studying figures of people who've gotten, contracted the disease and those who've died around the world. But do you think President Trump is leading our nation in a positive manner? This is what he said last night while he was celebrating African American History Month.
It's going to disappear. One day it's like a miracle. It will disappear. And from our shores, it could get worse before it gets better. It could maybe go away. We'll see what happens. Nobody really knows.
Your thoughts?
Well, I I think Trump is basically right in saying, well, nobody really knows. It could break out here, could break out significantly. We just don't know. I think the question really comes down to what is being done to try to prevent the widespread epidemic in the United States. And I don't think anybody really knows. We've quarantined some people coming back from China. There are some restrictions on screening other people, but nobody really knows what's going to be effective. Look, Iran is totally immersed in coronavirus right now. Italy has very large outbreaks. There are going to be other outbreaks in other places. Disease spreads very far and very fast, but the basic point here is don't panic. Don't let the media panic you. It's not a really serious disease. Very, very, very few fatalities from it. And, it's going to be like a case of the flu or even a bad case of the flu. But it's not something you can't survive. It's something that, it will pass. Trump is right in that, but the Democrats are going to try to make political hay out of it no matter what he does.
I wanted to get your reaction to what I find to be just stunning examples of anti-Semitism in Western Europe. I spoke last night on my syndicated show with Seth Fransman from the Jerusalem Post about this. You just can't believe it. I couldn't believe one instance, and then there was another one right after. First, in the Belgian city of Aalst, this carnival where people are parading around in Nazi uniforms with long noses and big fur hats to parody Orthodox Jews.
And long beards. I couldn't believe it.
This is a place where 25,000 Jews were deported from occupied Belgium during World War II to Auschwitz. And then after that, even worse, in Campo de Criptana in Spain, Nazi uniforms, people dressed up as concentration camp inmates, crematoria trains in this parade. Now, it's a small group of people, and some people locally have defended them. Oh, that's just our sense of humor, while officials at the national level have denounced them. But, I mean, Seth Fransman said something interesting to me I want to get your reaction to. The reason that they're parodying Jews in this disgusting way is because they can. And you'll note they're not parodying anybody else, not by ethnicity, because if you were to parody a Muslim or you were to parody somebody else, that an African immigrant, those are off limits. But the Jews, it's fine to do this even in the most disgusting, ahistorical way.
Well, but that's history. That's the way it's always been throughout Europe since Charlemagne. Basically, you're talking about a minority that doesn't do a very good job of protecting itself. I mean, you parody a Muslim, they're going to riot. They're going to kill people. You parody any other minority, they're going to at least protest and scream and yell to the media. The Jewish people don't do that. And what the Jewish people also don't do is protect themselves very well, except in Israel, where, obviously they've got a very effective defense community. But this is something that's happened time after time after time. The Jews are always a convenient scapegoat. They don't defend themselves, and it's not like the governments there have no knowledge of this.
Right.
It's not like the governments in Europe have no means of dealing with it. They choose not to because it's convenient for them to ignore it.
Speaking of convenience in the face of cultural Marxism, or worse in the case of the anti-Semitism in Western Europe, but back here, new Pentagon-funded study, 66% of non-trans military members support the inclusion of trans people in the military. 71% of the public supports trans inclusion in the military, too. So there you go. It's popular, therefore it should be instituted in the military post-haste.
No. I mean, number one, there's only room for so many genders. I have a very good friend who used to be the skipper of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, which is one of the biggest ships ever. And he said, okay, I got room for 2 genders. I could probably do with 4. I can't do it any more than that. I can't bunk them separately.
Four seems like a pretty reasonable compromise to go as high as 4. Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, the second point that I've raised, and this is not at all funny, tax money should never, ever be spent on having, sex conversion therapy for somebody who is just not sure who they are. It's not my problem who they are, and if they want to get changed from boy to girl or backwards, that's their problem. It's not mine. The tax money should not go for that kind of experimental and quite frankly, voluntary surgery.
And but in terms of why not? You're just saying it's an accommodation problem with the
Yeah,
you know
they're not gonna
70.
pay for my plastic surgery.
No. But an accommodation problem with these 75 different genders that you can select from Facebook. That's just an accommodation problem with the military. It's not a cohesion issue with the units.
No, it's absolutely a cohesion issue. I think we've seen, that we've had adaptation to gays in the military. That is something that certainly is not a cohesive force in terms of unit cohesion and other things. And you're talking about now spreading women into the combat forces. That's being done. It's been done. And you have you're going to get a certain point where women are going to be in special operations. I think that's a not cohesive idea. I think it's a bad idea. I think there are certain things where, look, women can fly a plane, even fighters, as well as a man can. But if you're a spec ops guy and the guy next to you gets wounded and he weighs 225 pounds and you weigh 125 pounds, you're not going to be able to carry him out of the line of fire. It's a matter of unit safety, cohesion, and reliability.
One more question I need some help understanding. I don't get, I'm watching right now that putty-faced molester of dogs, Donna Shalala, on CNN. That's a PJ O'Rourkeism. Got to give credit. She is talking about how outrageous it is to say nice things about Castro, like his wonderful literacy program that Bernie Sanders was very impressed by. But I don't understand why people are so upset about, up on the left, are so upset about Bernie saying nice things about Castro or Ortega or the Soviets. I mean, this is the same crew that was extolling the virtues of Hugo Chavez 5 minutes ago. So what's the problem?
Well, I don't see that there's a problem. This is just a matter of what the left always does. I mean, Castro was a murderous, torturing, oppressive dictator, but hey, that's the way these guys roll. This is what they usually hang out with. So I don't have any problem with Bernie saying that, but I do have a problem with any American president believing any of that. Bernie is probably the best candidate that Trump could possibly run against, except possibly Hillary. I'm sorry.
He is Jed Babbin, former U.S. Deputy Undersecretary of Defense, contributor to the Washington Times and the American Spectator. Jed, thanks as always for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560, The Answer.
Come on, Al, read our latest fan mail.
Dear Al and Marty, you are the most spectacular car dealers of all time, especially Al.
Give me that. It's signed. Al totally didn't write this.
See, it's completely unbiased.
Lease a 2019 Fusion SE for just $339 a month and 0 down. Visit Chicagoland's greatest dealers, only at Highland Park Ford Superstore.
We're Al and Marty. Deal with us.
Plus tax, license, title, and $179.81 doc fee. 10,500 miles per year, 36 months, $0 security deposit. Offer ends 12/2/19.
Hey, parents, grandparents, it's never too early to think about what activities your son or daughter or grandchild will do this summer, and you want your kids to have fun during their break but provide some structure and preparation for the next school year. Give them a gift. Consider St. John's Northwestern Summer Academy in beautiful Lake County, southeast Wisconsin. St. John's Northwestern Summer Academy